Hey everyone, this is the Innovator's Mindset with Dr. Frederickson. I was gonna say Dr. Fred, I messed up.
That's all right.
Excited. Got too excited, man.
Good.
I have actually just been sitting here for the last 45 minutes talking to Matt Frederickson. He is the superintendent at Lincoln County R3 School District in Troy, Missouri, which I'm actually going to be at in August of 2025. This guy has been blowing my mind for the last 45 minutes, so I don't know if he's got anything left to say, but the district is doing some amazing things. I know you've been a superintendent there. You're going into your second year. I'm going to be honest with you, Matt. I am like just blown away what you know about curriculum, your emphasis on really bringing in community, your students, and really empowering your teachers to do incredible things. So I'm sitting here, I'm just like, wow, I cannot wait to join you all. But if you could just kind of introduce yourself, tell a little bit about who you are, what you do today, and how you got there, I think it's a great place to start.
Well, again, my name's Matt Frederickson. I'm superintendent here in Lincoln County R3. This is actually going into my 32nd year in education. And it's kind of funny. I tell people, I went into education kind of kicking and screaming. My parents were teachers, my grandparents were teachers. The last thing I wanted to do was to be a teacher because, I had other things on my mind I wanted to do. But, something about the service piece of it really bit me. I really love helping others and whether it's through this. I also served in the military for about 25 years, mostly in the Guard. We kind of did both at the same time while I was in education. I just love that idea. And what greater place than in our classrooms to kind of think about helping others to achieve something. And it really gives me a sense of worth and accomplishment and motivates me to move on, to something else. So in my as an administrator, I spent 15 years as a teacher. I really enjoyed the teaching and learning process. And many go into administration after just a couple or 3 years of teaching, and that's fine. I think for me though, the reason I went into administration was to try to help others. And so I've had some great opportunities, whether it's in a really large district as a curriculum director. I got to lead a charter school in the city of St. Louis, for an arts charter school in the city of St. Louis, which was awesome. I was there during the Ferguson situation, so I learned a lot about our kids and about what they were experiencing and so forth. And been in a really small district for about 7 years as superintendent, and as my last kind of place of service in public education, I'm thrilled to be here as the superintendent in Lincoln County R3. It's a wonderful place. It's got the benefits of a smaller community and a larger community kind of all rolled into one. And we've got some of the greatest teachers here. I just am really excited to be able to serve alongside of them. I've gotten to know many of them in my first year, and looking forward to the work ahead. We've got some great momentum, going into our second year, along with my transition as the superintendent coming in this last year and learning about the community and hearing from people. We also had a bond campaign. It's all kind of all of it at once. And so we've got that was approved, and we're in the middle of getting that implemented now. It's a 3-year process to achieve all those goals in that bond issue. And so we've got some work ahead of us, but we're growing like crazy. We got to respond to that growth, and it's kind of exciting to be a part of that. It's energizing.
Well, the interesting thing that you're, by the way, I don't know if you kind of like dropped that this is the last place you're going to be. Like did I get like early retirement? Like no,
I got lots of gas in the tank.
Okay,
but
good.
I don't feel like I have another place. I mean, I really, there's so much here that I feel like I'm going to be able to be a part of. I'm looking forward to it.
This is not a breaking news podcast. I'm not ready.
No,
I don't want that to happen. So, one of the things that when we were talking prior, one of the things that you're really focused on, and I know that you're building a strategic vision, you're kind of going through the process with the community right now, is talking about exemplary experiences and how you actually create them, not only for your students, but for your staff, your community. I'm really interested because when we were talking, your knowledge of curriculum and focus and emphasis and kind of having that background, and I know this sounds weird. I don't know if it's always people that are directors of curriculum actually go on to become the superintendent. That is not necessarily the pattern I see. I'm sure it's out there, obviously, but like how does that experience kind of shape your thinking as a superintendent? That focus on, and like I'm sitting here listening to Matt, like I feel like I got a free one-on-one webinar on curriculum
Oh,
before we even got into this. So like how does that kind of shaped some of your thinking on the process of what you're doing in your schools right now?
well, at the end of the day, we want our students, when they leave us, to have all the tools that they need to be competitive and to reach their potential and to experience a life that's fulfilling. And when we think about reaching their potential, they all have different interests, but when it comes to competing with other students from other places for opportunity, we want our students to feel like they have those tools in their toolbox to be able to get there. So whether it's not making sure that our curriculum is rigorous enough that they get to those topics, they can feel like they understand, why things work. I went all the way through honors calculus in college and never really understood why. Why I could figure out how to check the box. I could figure out how to get the right answer. I figured out the processes. It was kind of but I never really understood why things worked. And I've been passionate about help, in my work is how do we fix that approach? How do we design school where kids understand, not only the what or even the how, but the why? And I think if we can design instruction where they see the relevance in what they're doing, it's developing experiences that are connected to that, so they can see the connection to their world around them and their future. I think that's a big part of what we need to be focusing on in schools for sure.
Well, it's funny because like you didn't really understand the why, but I didn't understand the what, why, or how. I didn't get any of it. So you're at least a couple steps ahead of me. So it is actually, I think when you say like, hey, I knew how to do this, but I didn't understand why it was impactful. I think sometimes if students have a good understanding of why you're doing it, then the what and the how become way easier. But it's like you
Yes.
fight it all the time. And as we were talking, I mentioned Jennifer Todd and Karen Fan's book "Host for School." You and I were talking about this before, that many students, when they walk out of school, what they're really good at is school, and
Hmm.
they're not necessarily great learners. They can't really figure out their pathway forward. It's something I'm really emphasizing on. And I think one of the things that I found really powerful in our conversation prior to this was your focus on community, and not just your parent community, yeah, and your families and not your students or your staff, but also your students. And you were telling me that you have a real big emphasis on having student advisory council, and they had brought up some things. Can you talk a little bit about that process and kind of what
Sure.
you've gleaned from the
Yeah.
students on that council?
Well, I think if we listen to students, they can tell us quite a bit. And I learned more about that in my time in the city, and we're working with students that were frustrated about their environment and finding ways to improve our experiences so they feel like there's some relevancy in their experiences at school. But I find that in other places that students have a thing or two to say about what it is that they're learning and what might be applicable in their lives. And so we brought together some middle school and high school students this year, and we started asking them questions about their learning experience. What are their relationships like with adults in their building? Do they have a trusted adult? Do they have somebody they can go to? They have someone that really inspires them. One of the first things I talked to our teachers about the welcome back last year was like, remind yourself, of your experiences as a student. What was the teacher that really made an impact on you, and what was that like? And so we want to make sure that we're thinking about making that kind of an impact on students and it's helpful to go back to the student's lens and remember what it was like to be a student. And so when I ask students about that, it's interesting to hear from them, what sort of relationships are very meaningful to them in their interactions with adults in their school, but also about the learning environment itself and how engaged that they see their peers being and finding what are the sorts of activities in class that they really remember and that really have helped them and that have really have caused that light bulb to turn on for them and see a connection to something else that they can apply. And so we've learned a lot about some of those kind of thoughts, and also we ask them about the physical spaces as we're looking at this bond issue. What do they notice around them? It's kind of funny when you hear, so you kind of get the Goldilocks approach approach sometimes. Some of the students, oh, lunchtime's too long. Others, oh, it's too short, or it's too hot in there, it's too cold. But sometimes they do get some ideas about,
Right.
what learning could look like what collaboration could look like, and what our spaces need to look like to facilitate effective collaboration. So that was exciting in looking at how we're designing some of our secondary spaces with this bond issue. What are some things that we can do to help facilitate better collaboration with their peers and more hands-on type activities? Hands-on activities, whether it's with robotics, or whether it's with building something, it takes space, and so we had to think about, maybe we don't have the right kind of space to do what they feel like we need to be doing in our classrooms. And then, one of the things that they brought up, and what's a really good balance with technology and actually, using other methods, and so I heard some things from students about some different ways we might look at that too. So overall, I think as a district, we're trying to always improve student engagement. I think that will affect student achievement, that will affect our student attendance, and we know that those are areas that we need to improve. But I think it all comes back to engagement, and so hearing from them, makes a difference, I think.
It's funny because you and I are just so aligned on a lot of the stuff that we think about. And I literally just wrote a post. I think it was on Tuesday. I published it, and it was like the importance of listening to student voice. But it doesn't mean you can always act upon it, right? Like I
Right.
talked about when I was in grade 12, I ran for student president. I'm like, we're gonna have like 3-hour lunches. And then I won on that. And when I went to staff, they're like, that's not happening. And it's not all we act on everything students say, but we do listen and say like, hey, here's why. Sometimes it's like, hey, appreciate the idea, but here's why we can't do that. And actually at least honoring that you give the reason behind it, which I think is like,
that's powerful.
I appreciate that, right? Like because we're not doing 3-hour lunches when I'm in grade 12 in a small town. So like, but I still won, so whatever. And I even joked like, hey, it was like an early politician. I didn't keep my campaign promises already. So it's a beautiful thing. I've been when we're talking before. I know how excited you were to come in there and just you're bragging about the staff, bragging about the work. You're telling me stuff you're doing. I feel like I can only screw up things when I come in.
Oh,
Like it's like
no.
you're doing really incredible things. So I'm getting more and more nervous as I'm coming there. So I guess one of the questions I always ask, especially when coming into a district, when I'm with your staff, how do you decide like what will be a successful day when I join you? Like how can I best help your staff to kind of build on your vision, build on the mission? What do you need from me when I join you all in August?
Well, I think what we all need when we start a school year is just a reminder of why we're there. And I don't think that sometimes we can approach this in a lot of different ways, but it's helpful to be emboldened by kind of that why piece. I think just to remind ourselves why this is important work and what kind of impact we can make in this work. None of us go into teaching for the monetary piece of it. I mean, there's some benefits that are way beyond that, I think. We were talking a little bit about student voice, and I think we have some fantastic teachers here when it comes to helping kids have ownership in their learning. And I think in general, when we have ownership in what we're doing, even with parents, we need thinking about how can we partner with our parents to develop partnership. And I think when we see a disconnect happening in our communities across our country, and it comes from not partnering together, because if you're not partnering, if you're not a part of it, you don't have ownership in it, then you're not going to advocate for it. And so I think you just kind of remembering, why this work is so important. It's important for our students to have ownership in their future and to develop, a pathway to their achieving their potential, but also working with parents along the way. We want our parents to be a part of this work and to feel like they are empowered to be, better guides and better collaborators with their classroom teachers along the way. So I think when students see that, I think they see a connection that empowers them to make that next step, to feel more confident, in moving forward.
Well, I'm going to tell you, like I've been sitting here talking to you. We've been having this conversation. I honestly cannot wait to meet your staff, to meet your community. The way that you talk about them, how excited you are about being there, and the work that you're doing is really incredible. So I I hope more people will get to learn from you and connect with you, but also learn from your district, because you're really kind of pushing the boundaries of what is possible, and especially that emphasis on really not just listening to student voice, but acting upon it, which I think really, really matters. So
Yes.
Dr. Fred, that's what I'm going to call you. I'm going to save my Dr. Fred joke for when I'm with all you groups, but it's been awesome to get to know you. I can't wait to meet
Well,
you and your staff in person in August.
we're looking forward to having, this is really a special place. We're looking forward to sharing it with you.
Love it, man.
And,
All right.
and learning from you as well.
Well, hey, thanks. Make sure you connect with Dr. Frederickson. You can see information on him down below. And thank you so much for listening, Dr. Frederickson. Thanks so much for being here today. Have a wonderful day.